Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S back with another What's the Word Wednesdays. Season 4, the final season, episode 13. Now, as we usually do, I'm going to drop down here in the comments and put up our topics for today, as well as I'm going to put our logo. But as y'all are coming in, y'all let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word. Shouts out to Point Blank. What's going on, brother? Peace and love. Space Queen, I see you in here. Alien Space Queen Quiz, I see you. What's the word? Chicken and Beef, what's going on? What's the word? But yeah, shouts out to y'all, as well as those who be watching this now and even later, whether on Instagram, YouTube, or any other platform. But if you're there on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to your boy at A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks. Again, subscribe to your boy at A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks, because there's going to be more content like this and others to come, so stay tuned. But as we are doing that, man, I hope everyone's doing well. Hope your evenings or wherever you may end up being, that you're having, a good time, winding down, and you're tuning in. So I appreciate y'all. It says sing the song. We're going to be there. But for today's show, as we're still waiting for a few more people, we're going to be getting into the topics of course, current events. So we're going to be going through our news. And then second, we're going to be talking about undeniable in a sense of what is undeniable. And then lastly, we're going to talk about, can you argue points when the evidence is clear? You tell me. Can you argue points when the evidence is clear? But that's what we got for tonight's show. A bit light, nothing, too much out of the ordinary. But again, y'all let me know how y'all feeling, how y'all doing, and what's the word? While I get the show or the track, our show track, and we play it. And we're going to just be getting this on the road. But yeah, it says taquito is the word. If it has anything, again, meat related, pause. No taquitos for me. But I appreciate it. Is it chicken and beef taquitos? What's going on? I don't know. You let me know. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead. I'm going to play the show song. And then we're just going to keep it pushing. So with this being the final season, of course, eventually there's going to be a song played. It's going to be this one. You ain't got to worry about hearing me have to sing it all these days. But for now, it goes something like this. What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? Tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, what's the word? Once again, y'all, it's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays, Season 4, the final season, episode 13. But yes, y'all, with that, man, we are here. Grateful y'all came through. But again, tonight, we're going to be talking about current events. Then after current events, we're going to talk about undeniable, what it is to be undeniable. And lastly, can you argue points when the evidence is clear? With that being said, y'all, let's jump into some current events. So if you have any events that you would like to share, whether if it has to do news-wise, whether if it's some good news, anything that you want to share, please put them down in the comments, because right now I'm going to go through some articles that I found, and we'll go from there. But if y'all have anything to share, please put it down in the comments. Right. First article that caught my eye. Article comes from Daily Mail. And the headline reads, Hurricane Lee forecast. Maps show path of extremely dangerous storm. So again, y'all, we got more Mother Nature, more weather coming through and having effect. In this particular case, from what I'm watching, it looks like it's coming up from the bottom into Florida. So let's see. It says Hurricane Lee forecast. Map shows path of extremely dangerous storm. Last night, the storm located some 1,230 miles east of the Leeward Islands of the Lesser Antilles, which includes the Virgin Islands, Saint Martin, Antigua, and Baruba. It had a maximum sustained wind of 50 miles per hour, and it was moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center in Miami. But by Sunday evening, its winds could reach winds up to 150 miles per hour, the center added. So, basically, Tropical Storm Lee is on its way back over there, man. It is. It's going to make and get strengthened by Friday, but again, by Sunday, it can have as high as 150 miles per hour winds. So, for my folks all in that area, please, again, be safe, prepare, and we hope, honestly, that it does not cause so much destruction and ruckus as it is projecting to. But again, if y'all want to look and hear more about the forecast of this, then go to Daily Mail, and then the headline reads, Hurricane Lee forecast. Maps show path of extremely dangerous storm. So we had Hurricane Hillary, Hurricane this one, Hurricane that, Hurricane Ida. Now, again, Hurricane Lee is coming. We're not talking about Brock Lee, Bruce Lee. It's just Hurricane Lee. With that being said, let's continue on with some more. And now this article, because I've been hearing a lot more talk again about not only we got people saying flu season and all these different sources on the cusp. This article comes from the Huffington Post, UK, and the headline reads, yes, there's a new COVID variant. Another variant. We have some good and some bad news. Again, yes, there's a new COVID variant. We have some good and bad news. Now, for this article in particular, 3 paragraphs, and then we're done. Article reads, the emergence of BA.2.86 variant named Pyrola, one of them, I'm going to say Pyrola, has pushed COVID back into the mainstream once again. Not much is known about this particular strain yet, but its genetic makeup has some scientists concerned. The descendant of Omicron variant was first found in Denmark and Israel in July, but has since been detected around the world. Even people who have no recent travel history, thus suggesting it's circulating in communities. So here's what we know so far about this new strain and just how prepared the UK is for it. So I'm going to read just the headlines of each of the good news and then each of the bad, and then let y'all go over and read the rest for yourself. So the sub-headlines under the good news says, testing and vaccinations are to be increased. 2, there's not been a large jump in hospitalizations. 3, experts expect immune systems to still recognize COVID. 4, another lockdown is not likely. Number 5, lateral flow tests will still detect them. Now, that's the good news. Now, the bad news, the topics at the top. COVID has not settled into a seasonal pattern yet. 2, Pyrola has a lot of mutations. 3, vaccines are still only available to most vulnerable. 4, we have fewer ways to keep tabs on the virus. And lastly, tests are not free anymore. So no more free tests. This is at least in UK. Again, UK is also a predictor of other stuff for other places, including the US, because it's on the top of us, of course. But that's all I got for this. I'm not going to read too much into it. But yes, there is more variants to add to the list of master variants of everything else. But if you want to read more, it comes from the Huffington Post, UK, and the headline reads, yes, there's a new COVID variant. We have some good and bad news. But yeah, I'll probably look through that a little bit more. Now, I have another one, which for some folks is their favorite drink to drink, and for others it is not. But we have some common foods, because it's important, especially with what we eat and what we put in ourselves. We have some common foods right now that is banned in other countries, but is not banned here. So I'm going to go through a few of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. But if you want to see the rest of those, the headline comes from Stacker, or the article comes from Stacker, and the headline reads, Mountain Dew has been banned in nearly 30 countries. Here's why. Plus more American favorites that are illegal somewhere else. And shouts out to everyone coming through. Tainted, peace and love, as well as Nate the Great. What's good, my G? What's the word? There's no... my goodness, you're hilarious. Right. So I'm going to read and then pop through some of those, again, banned foods and things here. But let's see, it says, consumers in the U.S. or United States put their trust in organizations such as the FDA and the Department of Agriculture to keep packaged foods, fish, and livestock production safe. But to what standard? Many American food additives and production standards have been approved domestically, are banned or strictly regulated abroad. This is all in addition to the U.S.'s liberal policies on genetically modified organisms, which are more restricted or banned outright in other countries as well. Yeah, again, all my folks out here in Cali, they've already passed, or again, of a law or just things of being able to now create lab grown chicken. So very interesting, to say the least. But we're going to click through, and there's 30 everyday American food products with ingredients that are banned in other countries. I'm not going to go through all of them. Again, we're only going to click through a few, but yes. So here we go. First one, interesting. Farm-raised salmon. And I think it's because it's just the coloring. Another one, it says dairy with RBST or RBH hormones. So a lot of our milk having all this extra hormones in it, which are artificial hormones that are stimulating milk production. Mountain Dew, this is the biggest one. And then because of the fact that it has brominated vegetable oil, and they use it as an emulsifier. It's all these different things that help keep away certain stuff from building up, as well as this type of, it's a retardant that can build up in your body and also lead to, it says, memory loss as well as skin and nerve problems. So my Mountain Dew folks, yeah. Chicken that has been chlorinated. We have meat with ractopamine. Again, y'all come here to see me also butcher these words. So these words is terrible. Little Debbie Swiss rolls. If y'all into some Swiss rolls, better watch out with them Swiss rolls because of the dyes that are in them. If you go to Arby's, if y'all eat at Arby's sourdough breakfast bread, croissant, and French toast sticks, not it. It's not it. Frosted Flakes, honey bunches of oats, and Rice Krispies, it's not it. It's not it. And they say because it has a flavor enhancer in it called BHT. I don't know what BHT is, but it's been banned in Japan as well as it's been banned in the European Union. No, not that. All my coffee folks, Coffee Mate. I don't know what's going on with it, but it says it's linked to heart disease and has been officially banned in the U.S. as of 2018 in June, but it's still in the food supply. So if y'all using Coffee Mate, please, please, for your health, please. And it's been banned in other places such as Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, Iceland, Norway, and Denmark. And you know what? I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go through all of them. But if you want to know all the other 30 everyday, at least American items that have been banned in other places, go to the article stacker. And the article title reads, Mountain Dew has been banned in nearly 30 countries. Here's why, plus more American favorites that are illegal elsewhere. So there's a lot. There's a lot. What's going on? Good to see you up in here, Chairman Dallas. Peace and love. Peace and love. All right. I have one more for y'all because I'm going to leave this one out. And then I'm going to just read some headlines for y'all from NPR. But the next one and the last one I have for y'all comes from online. It's called the Cool Down. It's the site. And the article titled is New Report Predicts a Troubling Way That Earth's Trees Could Start Hurting Us. We forgot how important they are. So again, with all of this stuff, 3 paragraphs, and then we're out. Article reads, they say, plant a tree, save the earth. But new data shows that the opposite is also true. Forests work as carbon sinks that help reduce air pollution and cool our planet. However, a new report by the U.S. Department of Agriculture has predicted that our forests' ability to absorb carbon will drop drastically after 2025, and that they could become a significant source of carbon emissions by 2070. Interesting. Why is this happening? 2 more paragraphs. Scientific American recently reported that our trees might start turning on us. Forests have long been climate heroes just for existing. As forests grow and trees absorb carbon from the air and store it. By doing so, they slow the overheating of our planet by reducing the rate at which harmful carbon pollution accrues in the atmosphere. Last one. Our forests, however, are losing the ability to absorb carbon. Lynn Riley, a senior manager of climate science at the American Forest Foundation, explained that this is partly due to the natural disasters like wildfires, hurricanes, and tornadoes, all of which destroy forests and have been more frequent and more intense as Earth's temperature increases. When forests' ecosystems are disrupted, a tree's ability to absorb carbon decreases. But yes, if you want to read more into this, I have my own idea too that is interesting about this, not only pertaining to Mother Nature or the natural occurrences, but if you want to read more, again, the article comes from the Cool Down, and the title reads, New Report Predicts a Troubling Way That Earth's Trees Could Start Hurting Us. We forgot how important they are. But yes, y'all, this was the last bit I have for y'all. We're going to look at NPR. I'm just going to read some headlines. If they pop out to you, they pop out to you. All right. If you want to check these out again, go to www.npr.org. I am not subscribing or getting paid or saying this is where you should always end up going. But these are one of the spots that I go to get stuff. So, again, www.npr.org. I'm not sponsored by them. There we go. So I'm going to read some stuff that's already on the front of the page. So we got one from Climate. It says, extreme heat makes air quality worse. That's bad for health. We have another one about Lee. We already talked about Hurricane Lee. Another one that says the floating border barrier in the Rio Grande must be removed. A federal judge rules. Another one is a special counsel will indict Hunter Biden in gun case with this month, the DOJ says. Another one is archaeologists in Norway found an arrow that was likely trapped in ice for 4,000 years. Then another, prenums aren't just for the rich and famous. Here's when to consider one. There's a YouTuber, which I did hear about, YouTuber and vlogger Ruby Frank, formerly charged with 6 felony counts of child abuse. So much stuff is going on. But yeah, y'all, there's more on here. Again, if you want to read and go through some stuff, www.npr.org, some news there. But check all the sources, because at the end of the day, it's just important to at least have some news and to learn how to read the news, if you know what I mean, like really read the news. It says, did you know that we move further away from the moon every year? That is something I am not sure about, but okay, if you do say so. I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that. But with that, y'all, if y'all have anything that y'all want to share, please put them down here before we move to the next thing. If not, I'm about to set up some of the next stuff for our next topic. But if you have some, please put it down. So while I do the setting up of things. There we go. Chemically proven is in here lanes. Bam. Said, look it up. You doubt me? Look it up. I'm gonna have to look it up and check in a bit. We'll end up seeing. There's an article for it that said in 2021, I see. It also says astrofacts, how quickly is the moon moving away from the earth? Okay. I see you. Even NASA got something on here talking about tidal locking. It says earth and the tides and the moon. Why the moon is moving away from us. Even BBC Science. Okay. All right, you got it. I appreciate you sharing that. So if y'all don't know now, you know that the moon is moving away from Earth. For what reasons? Again, you can read into the titles and read into the articles and find for what particular reasons. All right. With that, y'all, appreciate it. Now I'm going to get into the disclaimer and then we'll move on to the next topics for tonight and just keep it pushing from there. So, with the disclaimer, as much as I enjoy and again, like seeing your comments and the going back and forth with sharing information, this is the section and part that you are more than welcome to come in and join. If you do not feel comfortable going and joining, then it's fine. You can stay there in the comments. If you do come and join, just know that this will be saved. This is a live, whether here on Instagram, YouTube, or any other platforms. And when you come on, that means you are waving your right and you're saying it's okay. I don't mind being seen on all these different platforms. So I would love to. If not, it's all good. Stay down in the comments. It's welcome regardless. What's going on, Jack? Peace and love. All right, y'all. Now let's get into the second topic of tonight, which we're going to be talking about the word undeniable. And in what particular sense of undeniable, more so what it is and where is it to apply it, whether news, every day. We're gonna dive into it. It's just since we've been talking about words, always bring words up. It's like, why don't we continue to start speaking on these? But I have, not but, and so I have, and I'm actually for today, I'm also going to reference a different dictionary at the same time. Besides not only just one, we're going to look through 3 different dictionaries. And one of them that I like to look on is the Free Dictionary. And we're going to have this definition read. But when y'all hear the word undeniable, what word comes to mind? Put it down in the comments. If somebody says that something is undeniable, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Put it down in the comments. This version of complicated verbs beyond Orion's rhyming and exercising. So, all right. Got the first one up, second one, and the third one. So, we are good. Shouts out to the brother not fully dead. Peace and love, my G. Good to see you. What's the word? It's been a long minute, my man. Hope all is well with you. Right. So, the first article, and I like saying article, but I'll say the first website that we're going to be looking at this word, of course, is Webster's Dictionary. Shouts out to Chris. And undeniable is an adjective. And basically, undeniable means plainly true, uncontestable. So, it's something that is plainly true. You cannot contest it. Again, unquestionably excellent or genuine. When something is excellent or genuine, it's undeniable. Basically, it's unable to be refuted or unable to be pointed out that something's not right. So that's coming from Webster's. Now from dictionary.com, it has for undeniable, which I thought I did. Again, incapable of being denied or disputed. So again, you cannot deny it. You cannot dispute it. It's just undeniably. So even, for example, it's when someone, again, for boxing, I just thought, because there's been a lot of fights lately, is that person who ends up winning, again, the bout or the match with like a KO and there's nothing else, they are undeniably the new champion of whatever they get. Undisputed is what they also say. Undisputed champion of the world, heavyweight, lightweight, featherweight, whatever it is. There's no split decision or nothing. It's literally a unanimous decision. There's another word that's used with it to be, it's undeniable that they won. Saying, I'm doing good, bro. I hope you're good as well, man. Hey, I can't complain. Life goes up and down, but right now, man, I'm just grateful to be here. So appreciate you. Appreciate it. Another one, it's an adjective again, still. Another definition is not open to refusal. So an example is an undeniable call for help. So knowing when somebody really, really, really needs help. Not little boy who cried wolf type help. Because at the end of the day, it was doubtful of really did he really need help or not, because he kept always doing it over and over again. But again, undeniable, that one's from dictionary.com. Now the last one from undeniable, this one comes from the free dictionary. I like to use this a lot just for my own self. But there's 3 different ones that I have on here, and they're all adjectives, but in different ways. Shouts out to MC0 in the building. What's the word, my G? What's the word? Undeniable, adjective. It says difficult or impossible to deny. Irrefutable. So undeniable facts. So these are facts that you cannot deny. Another one again, it says, it's an adjective, unquestionably or obviously true. Second one, of questionable excellence. It says a man of undeniable character. And then the third one, unable to be resisted or denied. Undeniable. And then the last one they have on here, incapable of being denied or disputed. Uncontestable. You can't contest it. Not open to refusal. And then lastly, unquestioned as to the quality or merit. So indisputably good. So undeniable talent. When you know somebody can spit, especially rap wise, or somebody can sing, play football, any type of skill, and you know that they've displayed it time and time again. So people say again, for Kobe, for them, he's undeniably the GOAT of basketball. That's for folks. Other people will say for Michael Jordan, but it's because their resume speaks for them. You can't deny that they are not a legend in their right because of the talent that they have. So undeniable. People see it, they're like, oh yeah, this person know how to play. But okay, now we have 3 different perspectives on basically from 3 different sources of what undeniable is. Now you probably ask me, okay, what are we talking about when it comes to undeniable? It really surfaces back or surfaces into the next question that we're going to be talking about later. But in this particular case, undeniable, being able to, again, irrefutably speak on something that already has been shown to be true or what it is. So being able to express what is happening in front of you and then be able to share that with other people to be like, yeah, man, no, undeniably, man, that's already been done. Or it's already, in a sense, not liking it to the word perfect. Perfect, again, is another particular thing. This is saying without flaws. In this particular case, it is basically there. It's like the reality of. So you can't say that the sun's not there, because undeniably it's in the air. Whether if not the clouds are out, it's on a rainy day, the sun is still somewhere back there rotating and doing its thing, because it rises and it sets at the same time. So that's something that's always there. But when we start to question and we start to go against what we think is undeniable, that's where some people, in a sense, get into a state of delusion. Another example that I think of, and I actually used to have a shirt. I don't have a shirt anymore, or somewhere in my room. I'm not gonna even lie to you, because it's an older shirt. But on my trip back in 2018 to go to Hawaii in particular, I ended up getting a shirt from, basically, where is this? I'm looking. I think it's from Information is the shop where it is, because that's got like one of my Hawaii hats from over there. But there was a shirt that I brought that it says nature always wins. And to me, that's an undeniable fact, because of even some of the articles we were just reading about what's going on and what's happening with just not only the trees, but anything that we try to change that's already natural in its own state, and we try to change it and wonder why it doesn't, and we're trying to tamper with it in every way, shape, or form to disprove that this is not a real thing, this is not a reality. The more and more that people get into not only the delusions, but they start to see the backlash of stuff happen. So this is the result of questioning something that undeniably already is stated here is true, but we're trying to deny the fact or try to disprove the fact that it's not there. I mean, another undeniable, at least fact for some of us, is that literally there is air. You can't necessarily really touch air. You can feel air. You're breathing in air, or hopefully you're breathing in air. Hopefully you're not in a place where there's really, really bad, again, air pollution. But in this case, we don't say, oh yeah, air doesn't exist, just because of the fact that we can't physically touch it and we can't really see air. We see clouds, we see formations of, puffs. But like air itself, you don't know what it fully looks like, but you know that it's there. So that's an undeniable fact that there is air. Same thing with gravity. There is gravity. Because if there was not no gravity on this earth, if there's no type of poles here on this earth, literally everybody, this is quote unquote, everybody would be falling. Everybody will be flying up into the air and just disappearing. So that's some of the facts that we cannot, again, go against. Are we saying that these are absolute truths? No, he says, I don't breathe air, I bend it. You're still going to need to breathe it to bend it regardless, my man. Mr. Airbender over here himself, the Avatar. The last one, the last Airbender in this case. Everybody else is breathing it, you bending it. All right, cool. But from there, trying to, again, question things that are already been stated and shown can lead people into the cycle that we like to call insanity. I bring it up though, I bring it up a lot because as much as we have the ability to change things within our related reality, there is still a form, there is still a structure, there is still a ways of how each piece of that reality is created, especially for you to be able to communicate with other people. You just can't at any whim, destroy all the fabric of what you think is, all real, and then expect somebody from outside of you to then be like, yo, that's actually very true. Yeah, that air doesn't exist. It's gone. It's true that the sun actually does not exist. It's just randomly light here. It comes from a banana. So I know I'm using some very out there, ludicrous, very goofy examples, but this is very telling of what we're seeing now in the world. And it's been going on even before I was even here, before I was born, before minis, back centuries before. We always had folks who were like that. They will call them, of course, either lunatics. They will call them crazies. They will call them conspiracy theorists. They'll call them people who just lost their mind because of the fact that the use of also a saying that common sense is a thing, but really common sense ain't common anymore. Of saying these are commonly known either facts that are undeniable, but people still either are not grasping it or they're doing their best to try to go against the grain. That's like me thinking that since you use the airbender, in this particular case, thinking that I'm a waterbender and I'm actually going to go against the tide in these waves and I'm going to be just fine. It could be a big old wave coming and I could just walk through it unharmed, unscathed, nothing is happening. One, I belong on land. Two, going into the sea and you have no bearings besides you have to adjust to that environment. Three, you're going to end up still going to have to go in against the tide regardless, even if you're trying to fight it. But what you're doing is now you're making it even harder for yourself because of the fact that you want to make it harder for yourself by going against the tide, instead of going with the flow. So again, that only happens when you decide to question something that we know is unquestionably a reality. Now, on the flip side, I talk a lot more in, of course, the physical sense of stuff, of things that we already know. Science, and a lot of things that either they've proven and spoke about that's undeniable. Because at a point in time, some things, again, there's laws even within science that are still considered theories. And the reason why is because, again, these are not undeniable. They still have been changed, reformed, questioned throughout scientific time. And what I'm speaking about is the whole thing, too, about with Copernicus, Galileo, and them talking about the sun being the center of the earth versus not the earth, but of the, universe. And then the earth being the one in the center of all of the universe. And that's why with those particular theories being changed and you test and you do your hypothesis and experimentation, you go through the whole, scientific method, and you come to see the different solutions that come out, and they're inconsistent. Something that is undeniable, it is consistent. You can get the same result over and over and over and over and over again. The same things will continue to happen. It will continue to be there. It is of that reality. It is there. Now, moving to something that is at least undeniable, Also think about people, again, having feelings and basically having experiences. That's undeniable. You're going to go through life and have an experience. Whether you get up every day or you decide to even just stay in your house, you're always going to have some type of experience. Experience will always be there, and you cannot get away from experience, because experience is always a state. When you're awake, you're also having an experience. When you are asleep, guess what? You are having an experience. Whether if that is a dream, whether if that you're just in a state of you're just there, but your body itself is going through an experience. The same thing when, again, us thinking, we're going through an experience. It is very unlikely to just stop your brain from fully thinking. And what I mean by fully thinking, that means also going through its functions and stuff. That's, again, on your own. Because the brain, along with all the other vital organs in your body, again, they have a control of these things. So trying to slow this down, trying to figure a lot of this stuff out and be able to have no thoughts, clear everything out, do all of that, there's always going to be some peace there. And the reason why is because that's a part of the alertness in our body. We can't fully get rid of everything and then expect that's all that's there. That's why there's a such thing as balance. We also need to be able to have the opposite of something to be able to have an idea of what it is. So again, we talked about it last time, but knowing the difference between hot and cold. Because if we didn't have hot, I don't even know what we would end up calling it, to be truthful. Because if we didn't know what cold was, we wouldn't know those differences, those different experiences. We wouldn't be able to know the difference in those degrees. It would just be like, it's a day. Or I just feel okay. I don't even know if we would even have the word cool. I don't know if we would have the word relaxed, refreshed, area. Again, there's a number of things. I'm trying to pull myself out of something that's already still undeniably there, that if we knew about these opposites or didn't even have these opposites, how would we even function? That even makes me start thinking about sound. That's something, again, that's undeniably here. Again, you hearing me talk. For some folks, they can hear the backgrounds. I know for folks who are deaf, they're not able, in particular case, to feel sound. But again, it taps into all the different senses. So in a sense, I should go back and retract what I said. Not necessarily sound. Sound is there, but senses in particular. That's something that is undeniable that we have. We have these senses. You can smell, see, taste, touch. You can't say that you can't see this, can't do that. Of course, unless you've, lost those particular senses. But at the end of the day, you still have some. Well, what if there's somebody that's born without any senses? Honestly, I have not yet to hear of anyone who is devoid of all type of senses. All I will say is if that was a case, I don't even know. Again, SC is even hard for me to fathom, because for me, undeniably, I can think of everyone having some type of, again, sense, whether it's being able to smell, whether they're able to be able to see, taste, touch, be able to move. And then of course there's also the spiritual sense that goes into all of this as well. But it's something that a lot of this stuff we don't usually think about on a day-to-day basis. And that's why it's also important to show gratitude for those things that you do have. Even if folks are trying to go against the grain and prove that it's not really a real thing, as well as question different ideologies that do help people, but then also do the opposite of hurting people. And for me, when I think of it from that aspect, if we're starting to get into ideologies, beliefs, morals, values, all these different things, that's where that lived experience that we have becomes the testament to why you have the thought process, beliefs, goals, values that you do. Now, are those things undeniable? To you, they can be undeniable. To others, it can create, again, this rift, or it can create a conversation to why they don't think it is and you think it is. And when I'm speaking in that, I'm talking again about experience. So that's always something that you're going to have regardless, is experience. And there's nothing wrong with having experience, but it's what you do with that knowledge from the experience is how you go about creating and moving through your everyday life. Now, getting back into undeniable, again, this is stuff that you cannot refute. It is hard to try to question it. It's hard to go against and be like, yo, that's not even a real thing. That's why you have folks who will come and get in. We'll get into of course, the last question for tonight, because that's where a lot of this is based on. Will come and do everything that they can to disprove, and while showing that they disprove, some speak in a whole different language you're not even sure of understanding. And shouts out to Santi, peace and love, brother. What's the word? That their whole thought process behind that is to basically get someone off of their character and to not necessarily have you come to an understanding, but more so be able to. Some people just want to see you, again, be off your square, be emotional, feel like you lost a particular, again, argument or a particular point, to show that, okay, they've won that battle, when necessarily that's not the case. It's just literally your brain is trying to rack up what reality are they speaking about, what are they talking about, for you to, again, connect with them. This is why, for me, when I talk about having discussions or dialogues with people, I like to use the word reasoning, which, again, shouts out to brother Kwaku. Reason why I like using the word reasoning instead of any other word is because when you're talking with somebody, we're not trying to get down to either have a conversation to convert, because I love using words, I love playing with words. I'm not trying to convert anybody over to what I'm already thinking. I'm trying to reason. I'm trying to figure out a reason of why someone believes, understands, or, again, speaks about the experience of what they went through, versus go there already with a point of trying to disprove. Because when you come to finding out people's reasons for doing things, that's where you start to have more of a open understanding of, okay, so your reason for why you like to go outside is because of the fact that it's fresh air for you. Or you like to go to the movies is because of the fact that it's a pastime for you and your family to all go enjoy together. I personally don't like going to the movies. I don't like being at the mall. I don't like spending a big amount of money because right now movies is mad expensive. Popcorn is like $13-14 just for some popcorn. Extra butter might be another $2-3. And before you know it, you got a whole combo meal off of just like $15-17 that I can end up going and buying somewhere else. That's me going besides that. But again, that starts to create more of an understanding of why somebody has a reason to doing this or has a reason to doing that, versus, yeah, what you're doing is wrong. And the reason why it's wrong is because here in this chapter on this page ends up saying that you're not supposed to pick up this item and throw it, versus, okay, what was the reason for you picking up the item and throwing it? But that's going back into something that is undeniable. That's where it makes it difficult for people to move past stuff as well too. And I know I'm more so talking about it in a negative sense, if you want to say that, a negative sense about things being undeniable for people to be able to push through it. And partly is because of the fact that, again, it has people having to need to think and question their own reality of what they see or they hear about things, and then come to find out it's not necessarily that truth for the reality. And for certain people, they're not there in their experience in their life to be able to really take it in and really focus on wanting to take it in. Going back even to the word ignorance, being able to know that something is going on, but you actively choose to ignore what is there. You choose to ignore somebody laying out, okay, this is 2 plus 2, this is 3 plus 3, this is, 5 times 5. There's another answer beyond that. I didn't even think about that. Math is something that is also universally undeniable of what we use. I have not seen nobody refute numbers, even though numbers can be misrepresented, but undeniably numbers are used to help understand, and see a reality of things, because there is, of course, a numeric code. So I know there is a line. I don't know if it's a Jay-Z line, but I remember the line from Prince E. Shouts out to Prince E. But it said he quoted Jay-Z and then wrote on top of it. He said, "Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't." And I believed him because that line was so dope. But then I started thinking, and the thing about it is, numbers might not lie, but sometimes they tell fibs. So, again, knowing that it's a universal truth. We use numbers, we use every day to, all right, we already know it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Even though we know time is an illusion, that's something else. People be like, no, it's not an illusion. We're using it now. Well, then why is it 8:11 here? But then on the East Coast, 3 hours ahead, it will be 11:11. Well, shouts out to 11:11. I didn't even think about it right now. If y'all know about angel numbers, there you go, 11:11. Out there, somewhere else, there's an hour ahead. All the way across the other country right now, they're already into Thursday. For them, this will be, what's the word, Thursdays. It will not be Wednesdays. So that's another whole setup of different time zones. But getting back into the idea of knowing that even when we speak about, time and speaking about numbers, and from that line is that's something that's already written into the fabric of our society and how we communicate throughout the whole system. When people put their attention behind using it for another agenda, that is where it creates this cloud of confusion. So, knowing that numbers, undeniable universal language, we use it in everyday use. But when people skew the numbers, whether this can also be for music streams, people skew the numbers when it comes to votes. People misrepresent information with numbers. A lot of statistics in itself. It's also statistics that are just made up to represent a number of a statistic that's not even truthfully there, just so that someone can prove their point. That's why they have people who are not only credible, but be able to have some of this undeniable evidence along to, again, grade the measure of it. So people don't go crazy. Because I can come up with statistics all day, but if I haven't went out there, tested it, and proved it, and it didn't consistently keep coming back to be the same thing, then it's not undeniable. Now, in general, when trying to use statistics or even trying to calculate numbers, like especially like a world population with the census, that's more so to get a estimation of things. It's not to have a extremely exact number. To me, that's that's an improbable thing. That's undeniably hard to do, without question, to try to get it exact all the way down to the T. To know that, oh, in this particular area, this is how many people have been born. And then overall, this is how many people are all born on this earth, all the way down to the last number. That, for sure, undeniably, to me, is impossible. But to at least have a general aspect of how many people are on this earth, that's definitely doable. 1,000% doable. But how numbers can be used to skew stuff, especially in the favor of whether if it's politics or it's very favorable for someone's point in a debate or in an argument, that's where, again, you got to push back against it. Because then you got to talk about, all right, what's the relevance of it? You have to also speak on, okay, how old is this, topic? Where were you getting your sources from? All of these things start to come into play. And it can become very confusing. It can become very tiresome, as well as it can take y'all down a rabbit hole of stuff. Of like, okay, back way when, in the 70s, these numbers actually applied, but now these numbers have changed. I'll give you, for example, since we're talking about, especially nowadays, I'm seeing more so not only just, gender relations and how a lot of that has been changing. In different areas of, races, marriage, there is higher rates of marriage, of course, years, if not, different decades back. Now, if we look up the statistics on marriage, and we'll say even specifically in the U.S., because I can't speak about out in other areas around the world. I had to go, of course, look that up and stuff. And again, this would still be person by person and stuff. If people still even subscribe to the institution of marriage, I'm not downing it. I'm just, again, giving the reality of stuff that we are seeing. There's often more people that are unmarried than they are married, as well as people that are divorced after marriage. So the marriage rates have declined. At least I know I can speak again from, because I think of a look at blackstatistics.com. Back way when, marriage within the black community, roughly around the 60s and the 70s, we're up around 80 to almost 85%. But now when you look at it, it says one out of four, at least black women will marry. So down to 25%, between 20 to 25% of a marriage rate. Overall in the U.S., at least divorce is up in the high 50s, almost pushing into the 60s. And to even go further into it, that percentage of those 60s, it says, and because I've seen others change, so that's why you always got to stay on top of it. It said between 70, the women initiate the divorce, and then those women who are college educated, again, or have a high paying job, is between 80 and 90%. And then if we go further even to start thinking about that, reasons for why people break up, and finances being one of those things, and also just differences being another thing, it comes to start showing you the effectiveness of the institute of marriage. Again, don't quote me on all of this stuff. Again, you can look it up. I'm not saying that it's undeniable. This is just something that I'm noticing. But again, just to give the example, when using statistics and numbers, not only to bring about an argument or bring about a topic, but to be able to understand why something is happening, and not just be like, oh, it doesn't exist at all, just denying it. Again, it's undeniable that something is going on with marriage. It's undeniable that something is happening with our climate. Like I talked about earlier, again, the trees. It's undeniable that something is also not working, again, in our system when it comes to our GDP, when it comes to all the different branches of government. Something's not right. Something is just not, again, adding up. So we have different, not only phrases, but means and ways to see that, okay, something is not working, and these pieces are helping us to identify what's not there, or even what is there, and then now how do we go about doing it? But again, if we go back to just ignoring that these facts or things are put there, then we're denying ourselves of a true reality just because of the fact that we don't want to abide by it. We want to do everything in our power to ignore and go against it, to say that this is not a thing. And then you wonder why either life becomes hard or extremely difficult for you. And it's because of the fact that, again, you're going against the tide. You're deciding, I can punch this wave and then the wave is going to stop. Again, nature always wins at the end of the day. At least for me, that's something that's undeniable. Nature is always going to win at the end of the day. I have no control over that. I have no control over any of y'all watching or even being here, what you say. Again, it's undeniable that for me, you cannot undo nature as much as you want to. As much as you can try to populate things, reverse engineer, or again, GMO, a lot of different stuff. Again, to get the artificial, it's nothing real. There's nothing, to me, nothing better than the natural. And when you start messing with the fabric of what's natural, what's undeniable, again, that's why they call them laws of nature. They don't call them theories of nature. They call them laws of nature. So once you start messing with these laws of nature, because the same thing with laws, some of these that, again, within science and within the natural state of world, when you talk about a law, it is something that is set in stone. It is something that is undeniable. You cannot go against it. It stays consistent. You know that this is what happened and this is what it will always continue to happen. But now when we think of, and again, when there's man-made laws, those are where a lot of things are, in a sense, flawed, because there's always going to be amendments. There's always going to be some change to a rule. There's somebody that's always going to veto something. So when you have something like that, that definitely is not, quote unquote, using a law in the natural sense. It's more like a theory because of the fact that it can always be disproven, which goes back to the whole outer thing of a natural, or at least the laws of nature, are something that are undeniable because of the fact that you can't be like, all right, one day I decide that let's turn gravity off. I'm going to turn it off. There is no way it means to be turning gravity off until this place is gone. Same thing with, all right, let's just stop, water from producing. Water is not going to be there. A lot of natural resources will stop. And we're still going to be able to live without any water. Try and see what happens. See what happens. And again, don't quote me on this, but roughly anyways, a lot of this water that's on the earth, only up to about 2% of it, and again, don't quote me on it. You can look and try to find it for yourself. Only 2% of the world's water is actually drinkable water. The other 98% of it is undrinkable water. And this is not even to talk about the whole filtering process out of stuff, but just in general, that a lot of things that's already been naturally set, that's just how it's naturally set. Just like also how our body was created. Again, we can try to put in different fillers. We can try to, again, get work done on face, body, your teeth, and everything else. But again, when you was in your womb of your mother, and you were being birthed, and you was being, again, created and born within the womb, you were getting everything that was there. That's why not everybody comes out with the same things. Because again, the genetic codes is extremely different. That's something that's undeniable at the end of the day too, is that everybody has a different genetic code. That's why we all have a different thumbprint, even though there's, again, billions of us on this earth, and there's not one that's, you can replicate it. We're trying, of course, with AI, you're trying to make duplicates and create copies, but guess what? It's a duplicate and a copy. It's not the original. That's why you can tell when somebody gets an original. We'll even go into music, and then after that, we're going to jump into the last topic for tonight. You can tell when somebody's going and looking for like an original copy of like a famous artist vinyl or a CD and things of that sort. You can tell when people are trying to play off and get the knockoffs. You can see how things are unauthentic. They'll try to put it down to the T of how it looks exactly like it. But there's a certain feel. There is, of course, some people try to put the certain price to put it there and be like, oh yeah, this has to be legit because look how much it is. But there's always going to be a certain feel, certain look, as well as it's going to have a certain seal of authenticity behind it. So My point being that even though we can try to replicate, we can try to go against stuff and try to change some of these things, again, at the end of the day, the natural nature of things and what has really already been set in stone, not only by the laws of nature, but what's already truthfully there in front of you, it's undeniable. Even some of your feelings, even if you try to get out of your feelings, there's a reason why you feel a certain way. Why you be like, okay, now I'm really frustrated and upset. You're not going to deny the fact that you're upset. When you feeling something and you going through something, you're going to go through something. And if you don't, eventually you're going to bottle it up to a point where you're going to have to let it out. These emotions got to move. Again, how I like to describe emotions, it's energy and motion. It is very, very, very difficult, if not almost an impossible feat, to not move or give a response when you are feeling an emotion. When you're excited, you're not just standing there like, when you really excited about something, you might get your hands moving. You be like, oh, you might be like, man, I couldn't believe that happened. You are expressing it. That's what emotion is. You're supposed to express it. When somebody says that somebody is emotionless, I'm going to be honest with you. It's because of the fact that either they've went through an experience that has showed them that you have to be this way, because if you don't show it, if you show too much emotion, this is what's going to happen to you. Or the way that they express an emotion is not exactly the way that you would express an emotion. And again, it can be completely different. But for me, there's really little to no people out there that cannot express emotion. Even the folks that we have that we would consider either antisocial, the folks who, are struggling with having, the wherewithal in their mind, whether if it comes to the serial killers and people and stuff like that. Unfortunately, some of them get into a whole different type of emotion, whether that's more either the thrill or excitement, but that is still an emotion. But again, the morality is a whole nother piece that's set there. But getting back to my point again with the emotions is that undeniably they're there and they're giving you signals, because you're going to experience emotion because you are living and you're going to have an experience. So to me, it's undeniable. All right. With me doing all of the rambling and things and such, hopefully a point there was brought across. But want to get into the topic, the last topic for tonight, which the last topic we got for tonight, again, in line with something that's undeniable, is can you argue points when the evidence is clear? Now, for us to really get into this and drop it and run with it, again, y'all can answer the questions down in the comments. Any of the things that y'all have, you have responses and stuff, please go for it. Put it down in the comments. I highly appreciate it. I'm just going off of my own thoughts that are popping in, and when y'all throw things in there, it again helps provide and keep the conversation going, because I just want to just dominate the topic and the talking, because that's where we actually get to build and we understand, overstand, and understand each other's reasons for this stuff and be able to build. So again, can you argue points when the evidence is clear? I'm going to give you a cop-out answer, but I'm going to explain each one. And some of it has already been based on what we've been talking about already. And then there's the other side of it. So my first answer for that is yes and no. So can you argue a point when the evidence is clear? Yes, you can argue a point in a sense for that evidence is clear. But at that same token, you can also still argue the point that the evidence is not clear just to go against the grain. Just to create the dissonance, and not constructive dissonance to a point where you can continue these reasonings, but more so, especially in an argument, because of the fact that you want to keep your posture and not show that you're losing. Even if I already told you that, look, this is how many apples that we already have for this particular dinner. There's 20 apples here. There's no more than that. We don't have any other apples. There's 20 here. Right in front of you. You can see them. But you still decide, nah, man, there's only 17. What are you talking about? Look, on the table, count them. It's 17. And you're like, no, there's 20. You can literally count them, see that there's 20. And this is where, again, we've talked about previously, not only the ego, but truthfully, when someone at heart wants to win, regardless of what it is, they go to the extreme to make sure that you're not proven right and they're not proven wrong. To this point, there is actually a lot of skits, especially shouts out to Trey Rags. Trey Rags has done a lot of skits like this, where he'll have two different characters, and one of the characters is doing well, and then the other character is trying to do better than that character, and he's doing stuff again, and it's getting to a point where it's getting outrageous. It's like, what are you doing? And the end result of that person that was in that argument or that place with the other character he's portraying, he was like, I didn't want you to win. He's like, you couldn't win. I didn't want you to win. And that's how sometimes a lot of these arguments and a lot of these talks will go. Is because of the fact that, because you can argue that something is undeniable because you do have the evidence and it's clear, but you can also argue against it just because you don't want the other person to win. And it's something deep-seated, rooted in you that's just like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm going to argue all the way to the point till I finally win. At that point, it doesn't even come to what's factually there. It comes to how much stamina you got to even continue with this person. Is this even a constructive, again, debate, dialogue, or argument? Is this really even constructive at this point? It starts to show you that no. So can you argue points when the evidence is clear? Yes, but it's going to come down to, are you trying to have a constructive argument? Or are you trying to have basically a destructive argument? And most of the time, especially now, how I see it, a lot of us, and I hope this wasn't the experience, but a lot of us have become either comfortable, used to, and it's a regular occurrence for us when it comes to things being dysfunctional. So we thrive off of the dysfunction. We thrive off of the misunderstandings and the miseducation. And when I mean thrive, as in that's what we continue to keep searching and looking for. Versus when somebody brings us something that will not only keep us accountable, but they can also give us a hint towards growth, we continue to go back to the dysfunction of things. And like I said, hopefully this was not your experience. I've learned to grow a bit out of a lot of that. I'm not saying there's still some things that I do that's still dysfunctional, but that's what evolution is. That's what evolving is. You learn what you were previously with right now. You learn to get out of that survival tactic or just only that survival mode. And then you start to get into a mode where you actually thrive from all of that. Because that's really what's really at the core of a lot of the functions that we have. Is still doing with survival mode. And once you're able to get past the survival mode and get into thriving, that's where you have a whole set of perspectives. Again, they say it's levels to this. There definitely is levels to this. To me, undeniably, there's levels to this life. And the reason why I know it's undeniably there's levels to this life is not only because we have a variety of different, again, beliefs, philosophies, but also if you look at just the structure, physically, you look at the structure of the world, things are built from the bottom up. Buildings are up. There's levels on buildings. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Literally houses, they call them stories, but there's still a bottom level, there's an upper level. Same thing. When you think about branches of government or you even think about pyramids, each of them have different levels. So for me, undeniably, there's levels to this life. Whether you want to believe, or I don't even like to use the word believe because you can lie about your beliefs. That's just me playing with words again. But to me, it's undeniably seen in everything that you do. There's a hierarchy in everything. You have a boss. You have coworkers. You may have again, if you're at a school, there's the principal, the vice principal. There's admin above the principals. There's CEOs. Then you just have the workers. You have office staff. Everybody has a part that they play. And at the same time, everyone has that particular level that they're on. Because if everybody was on the same level, to be honest with you, it would be the equivalent of having 15 to 20 different cooks in the kitchen trying to create one dish. There's too many of us in there. We get bottlenecked. There's not much, not only progression, there's not a lot of growth. And this is usually too what happens when we're talking about trying to argue a point when the evidence is clear and we get ourselves encaged in the crabs in the bucket mentality, which basically is just pulling people down, not trying to see them rise up. And this is not also to look down on people and be like, yo, I'm on a higher level than you are. It's more so to be like, hey, I'm heading up this way. Let's go. Are you ready to go? Are you ready to undeniably see that there is growth at the top and get your way up out of this perspective? Or are we going to stay there? But again, it says like guns, need a Desert Eagle. Okay. This dude is over here spitting. What's good, my G? Hope all is well with you, man. What's the word, man? EBT in the building, my man. What's good? I saw you in there. I was looking down at the comments. But again, on that side, yes, you can argue that there is the clear evidence that I'm giving you, but at the same time, you can also argue against that evidence. But at the end of the day, you're just putting yourself into a cycle of insanity, thinking that things will change, but keep doing the same thing over and over. Even if it's clearly stated right there out to you, you just say, nah. Now, on the other side, I had said yes. But then on the other side, when it comes to being able to argue a point when the evidence is clear, for me, no. Once it's clear, it's clear. There can always be additions. But especially, again, when we talk about a lot of the universal languages, like math, a lot of that stuff is undeniable. It's clear evidence when a number is said. And this is where I have my gripes as well as I have my critiques, especially about Common Core in the United States. It is re-envisioning how we look at a universal language, which is math. It gets to a point where a lot more of, and this is no diss to any of that. There's always a point in time for it because it gets paired well with things, is where emotions start to come down full display. What's going on, Kundin? What's the word? Versus the logic aspect. And a lot of this stuff, that's what really dealing with topics of sorts is always is a logical aspect to it. And it's really not emotionally charged because, again, when people are in arguments and they know that they're losing, that's the next thing that they go to doing is that they try to trigger certain emotions out of you. Because once you become emotional, now that is where your rationality, or it becomes irrational when you're arguing or getting to a point. It said, well, I'm sending you much healing and much love, Kundin, hoping that you will feel better. But thank you still for even popping in and tuning in. I appreciate you. So going back to arguing a point, and you know that something is already clearly there, especially like within math. My gripes with Common Core in particular is that if you can prove through some type of formula or by your type of writing, or if you feel that this equation, that 2 times 2 can also equal 5, you can still get points. And that's where, when we start to do things of that sort, if we start to try to create not only half truths or get to, yeah, shouts out to you, the ridiculous mental gymnastics of doing stuff like this, you literally are opening the door for everything else at this point. And what I mean by that, there is things that, again, that are undeniable, that you cannot have a maybe on. It is either yes or it is either no. It is cut straight to the center. But once you start questioning and saying that, oh, maybe that 2 times 2 can equal 5, if you give me this explanation and I still give you points for it, now you are creating an alternate reality within of a reality that these things can happen. So then guess what happens? You get more people trying out different types of realities within a reality, and it starts to skew everything. And then you get to a point where, okay, then what is really true and what really isn't? What is valid and what isn't? It gets to a point where then you have people messing with, in labs, different atoms and trying to get reverse atoms, then to mess with this, to reverse different things within life. Again, don't quote me on this. I'm just remembering from, why am I forgetting the particular place? I know it's somewhere. It has to be somewhere out in Australia or some other place. But they're doing studies of stuff like that with atoms and literally black matter and things of that sort. But you'll get people to those points that they're, again, going into and messing with the natural order of stuff, so that everything is just open for play. Oh, I saw somebody steal something from this store, so that must mean that it's okay to continue to steal stuff. And speaking of stuff like that, they're actually passing, and I have to, again, every time when I say don't quote me on it, I want you to always make sure to go do your own research, because I've seen articles, I've heard news reports, but still, I want you to still look at it and, identify it for yourself. But because theft has been such a large occurrence, especially, again, I'm speaking here in California, in certain places, that now a lot of markets and stores are actually putting cases on literally detergents, which I know some places already we've had cases and you have to go and ask for assistance, but like detergent, milk, other different food products, they're starting to put cases up because more people are just going in there stealing. And not even want to say crazy, but the unbelievable thing about this is that folks who are trying to stop people from stealing, or again, getting caught with this stuff, you can get charged for things like that. It's getting to a point where, and what I mean by charge, as in you get in trouble by the law for trying to stop somebody from stealing, like petty theft. So now, literally, because everybody can go up into the store and like steal stuff, and some people are even walking out and waving at the camera and just driving off, they have all of their stuff and they're not getting, again, the consequences for this stuff. Don't get upset when stuff starts to get expensive. Or don't get upset when people just decide, you know what? Why do I even need to use money? I could just go into the store and take the stuff because other people are doing it. Why do I need to go about the right way, or, the civil way, and go pay for this stuff? Let me just go take it. Once you start, again, messing with the fabric of things that are undeniable or has clear evidence that this is what it is and it cannot be changed, if you start to create the possibilities and all that stuff, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be endless possibilities of stuff. And that's where you're not going to have a boundary, a foundation, or even a balance of stuff. Things become unbalanced. And then you can feel it. You can feel the imbalances when stuff happens. You can tell when your body's not feeling good is when it's sick, because there's an imbalance. Say, EBT, hey, I'm telling you. Say, I must have caught the bug. Hope it's not. Okay. I had to do a Sept test. Yeah. I've seen some. Yes. Oh, yeah. California Bill SB 553. The state is truly getting ridiculous. Yes. See, I forgot the specific bill. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, all bad. I'm telling you, it's getting, it's getting down to a point where, again, arguments, as well as being able to have proof, is getting thrown out. And I'll even get into the part, again, we talked about politics, but I'll even talk about in a court of law. In a court of law. Remember I told you, man-made laws are subject to change. There's always going to be amendments. There's always going to be updates, revisions. There's going to be parts where it's vetoed and other parts that it becomes inactive. In the way that we use law, it's, again, for me, it counters what really law is. And that's something that it cannot be changed when you think in the natural sense, what I was talking about earlier. But you can go into a court of law, not only if it's dealing with child support, or even if it's dealing with, in a lot of cases when I think about this, also, I'll just end up using the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Again, you're guilty until proven innocent, especially when you have a society looking at a group of people with already being innocent. And that's where, again, I know it's hard. That's why I say you gotta, at times it's hard to keep the emotions out. But if you know how to properly use your emotions to help you logically put things together, that's where it works. But in a court of law with a lot of people, again, that's why people appeal to people's emotions. Because of the fact that you can have all this evidence. You can have video proof. You can have text messages. You can have recorded calls. You can even have, and again, I'm just using this example, not the full thing. You can also have literally samples, like bodily samples, blood, DNA proof. And people can still either be charged when all of the cards have been stated out that this person is innocent. How many innocent people do we have already in the system that because of the fact that they throw some of the cases, they just throw out the evidence, and part of it too is because of this is involved, that again their reality gets distorted and it gets jacked up. Need your support. So it gets to a point of not only how lawful are things created, but at the same time, what is justice at this point? If we can see, now I'm even thinking about that. That's why it's so difficult for us to have universal definitions for anything, especially in English. And the reason why we can't have universal definitions for stuff is because words continue to either get changed, definitions become archaic, or basically they are not in use anymore, as well as there's multiple meanings to stuff. It's always reused in some way, shape, or form. So for us to even try to describe something to somebody, or even so again, how I just showed y'all earlier with me reading down the word undeniable, I went to 3 different sources. Some of them have, very similar words and, how it's described, but still at the same time, why is there multiple definitions? Why is there just not one universal definition? It's the same thing with, again, how would you describe a family? Oh, it depends on how you feel you would describe a family, because a family could be blood related. A family could be, again, we have extended family. You have people that's not necessarily, related by blood, but that could still be considered a family. I'm not saying that, oh yeah, we need to just have an end all be all for words. But then again, this is where a lot of this confusion will continue to come in, and people can literally argue any point because it's unclear. It's not undeniable. Why do you think, again, lawyers are able to keep the jobs and do what they do when it comes to learning about loopholes within the law? It's because that's a part of their job, is to find all of those loopholes. And it's their job to literally find all the small inconsistencies to be able to, again, prove a point for somebody's reality to be true. But again, when you have something that is extremely unclear and it can be refuted, it opens up a whole world of possibilities. You just done opened up Pandora's box just because of the fact that, oh, this makes sense. So if that also makes sense, this should make sense. And that's why there's a lot of things, especially when people are doing scientific observations, are going through the scientific method. That's why they don't use a lot of the words of either causal. They can say that is linked or it can be closely linked, but it's not a causal effect. You're like, okay, what does that mean? So the foods that you eat, for example, they're not saying that some of them can be linked to cancer or it can cause cancer, but there is a high possibility that it can lead to that. But for us in particular, I just talked about an article too. Now it's funny how a lot of these articles are, and the song is also too, that these articles is popping into this conversation too. A lot of the foods that we have, if you went to your either restaurants, you go to any food establishment, you'll see a lot of them have up to Prop 65, which basically is a prop to let you know that different items as well as foods within California or any particular place has some type of, it can have some type of chemical in it that either is linked to or it can cause cancer. They call it a carcinogen. There are so many in this in this place, but again, going back all to my points about, can you argue points when evidence is clear? No, you really can't, because if you end up doing that, again, you open the door for everything to happen. Just everything. It doesn't even matter at this point. It's like, okay, if we could literally argue that houses don't exist or what a house is because of the fact that there's multiple definitions about what a house is, then it gets to a point that, yo, is that even a real thing? That's why coming down to debates, you have to know what the intention. I know I use that word a lot, but it really just keeps showing its way up. You have to know the intention behind why you're having the debate, the argument, or whatever it is. Is it to actually build and prove a point on something that will help us grow further, or is it just for people to just intellectually have a battle just to see who has the most knowledge? Because if we're doing that, then again, that's something that is more of, again, a subjective experience to see who comes out and who's at the top, not versus we're doing this to challenge each other to go further, to actually either unlock more knowledge or to figure, again, the reasoning out of why one side is on that side of the fence versus the other side of the fence. It's not coming to an understanding, outerstanding, overstanding. It's just to see who has the best wits. And if we get into stuff like that, then we're already dooming ourselves from the beginning. Because again, you're opening up a whole realm for things to be possibilities of. Because you can argue possibilities all day. I actually remember having a conversation with a brother that I know. I haven't talked to him in a minute. Hope all is well with him. But during this time, the whole idea too, when we were having COVID shutdowns and things about the vaccine and all this other stuff and etc., we were getting into a point where it just created just a roundabout. It was just a roundabout. We were talking about like, okay, well, if this is the case that you're trying to quote unquote get rid of people, then, you know, you should be more of taking it because of the fact that it's also getting rid of people. But then I'm like, well, at the same time, for some folks, because you don't know all the details about it, you want to make sure you make an informed decision before you end up taking or doing any of that. But why would you do that? Why are you going to waste and take your time to want to end up doing that? Is that even a real thing? Is it really real? Yes, it's a real thing. But at the end of the day, just like how there's always different, I think there's a book called Medical Apartheid. I actually have the book, and how a lot of not only the medical dosages, but a lot of the recommendations for medicines, pills, and pharmaceutical things, it doesn't apply race by race. A lot of that is put in with the standard of course, the majority. In the case is more so for white people, and it's based off of that particular measure. For some people, they might have to take more dosages because of a different race in the makeup, because again, our DNA is completely different from each other. There's certain points, of course, that we have certain similar cores. That's why we know about the DNA strands and having a double helix, but down to all the genetics, of course, is different. There's related things, but it's not the exact same. Again, only when it comes down to the family and lineage. But going back to my point, me and the brother kept going back and forth to a point where he was just like, yeah, man. So like, if you're not gonna do that, then you might as well can't do this. He was like, man, then like, if you're gonna do that, you might as well not leave the house. And I'm like, you're always gonna be at a risk somewhere. We can play this all day, like talking about if you ain't gonna leave the house, then now you're also playing into it. And it's like, well, again, we can do this roundabout, but what's the purpose? Is somebody trying to prove a point to be right? Or are we trying to get to an understanding of why the other person has the perspective that they do? Because again, I can play these subtleties back and forth all day. You can play the subtleties back and forth all day to try to prove a point. That's why a lot of people do not like to debate or like to talk about religion, politics, and, personal interest, especially when it's somebody's opposing view. But yeah, Santi, sending you love, sending you healing right now, man. I'm really am. So, again, going back to the point, everything becomes a political football game these days. Well, I put the game in there, but a political football these days. Yes, it's just to move the goalposts. That's all it is. They want to see, okay, can we get this point across? Wait, let's speak on this point. No. Let's go to this point now. It's like, no, let's stop at this point. You brought this point up. Let's continue to have a talk about this point here. Let's not move past it right now. We're right here. We're on level 2. Don't try to jump up to level 3 just yet. We're still talking about level 2. And because of the fact that we're doing that, this also becomes a reoccurring thing within the structure of a society. And I'm only speaking of course, being in the U.S. I don't get to see other societies because, again, I haven't been born anywhere else outside of the U.S. I've been to other places outside of the U.S., but not long enough to be able to study and understand the fabric of their society and structure. But I can definitely speak to the experience of the U.S. structure. And when we get into these, not just saying identity politics, when we get into this point of trying to move the goalposts on stuff, you wonder why the infrastructure of stuff falls very quickly. And it's because of the fact that we are not fleshing out, we're not taking the time to build a firm foundation, not only on what we stand for, but also what we still don't understand, and then what is our point of attack, or our plan to actually address those things. And that's where it starts getting down to the point of why people only address the symptoms of issues, but they don't go down to the root and the core of things. And it's because of the fact that we like to find a one-way, quick way, fix it for everything, versus actually taking in the time and effort to fully understand, understand what we are trying to do, the full picture. We're only looking at a corner of the picture. We're not even trying to look at how this can have a blanket effect of everyone. And then people start getting confused about, well, what about the specifics of things? And then not looking at the general. I look at it in this aspect. Again, the macro has an impact on the micro. And what I mean by that is, a small group gets impacted by the larger group. I'll give even a further example. If you're in a room with 4 people and it's just only 4 of you, it's not loud. Y'all chilling. Y'all doing y'all thing. But then once you get into a conference room where there's hundreds of people and there's a lot of loud noises, unconsciously, when you're talking, you're going to start competing with all the other noise there because of the fact that, again, it's so loud, you can't hear them. I'll even go further. That's why it's like that at concerts and clubs. It's because there's so much noise, there's so much things going on. You have to overpower what's going on for you to get your point across. So if we continue to do stuff like that, and we're just only trying to continue to move the goalposts, we're trying to say whoever is the loudest is the one that's going to get their point across without, again, seeing that it's clear in the evidence that these are the points here. Again, it gets into the emotional aspect of, if we keep having a shouting match, whoever the loudest wins. And that's not the case. But because we decide that, oh, there could be possibilities here and possibilities there, it just leaves so much more room for anything to come in. Because I can end up saying again that, okay, since water is actually a natural resource, I shouldn't even need to pay for water. I can go to the store and then, again, like you talked about earlier, just go and grab something and just take it. There should be no issue. Because water is a natural resource, right? So it's natural that I can go in there and get to have the water for myself. It don't matter if it's in a restaurant. Don't matter if it's in a store. It don't matter if it's anywhere that you can get access to water. I should be able to go and get it because it's a natural resource. I should have a natural right to it. Why do I need to pay for a natural resource? But then at the same time, again, there's the laws, the morals, and everything else that encompass it. A lot of us are not on the same page with that. And that's what happens when people are in different books, reading on different pages, and they don't have the same content within those books. That's where all this chaos continues to happen. It's so much going on. But yeah, it said moving the goalposts is both a logical fallacy and a powerful manipulation technique. Yes, I see it often in Hindu-phobic discourse. I'll leave it there. Oh, speaking of that, hold on. Real quick. I got something for you, Kundin. Real quick. All right, hopefully y'all can still hear me. Y'all let me know if y'all can still hear me. But because that's a fact, this is what I went and got. So I have it now, my man. Or since I already have it, Kundin, now. Because it's important that we arm ourselves with information, not only just when a narrative is being moved for one group of people or persons, but also, again, to make stuff clear. Understand that it's just not only in these particular places that this information is. It's very not only condescending, but it leaves out for discourse to happen because we're going to deny realities and stuff. But then also we are not taking the opportunity to be fair about stuff. Because of the fact that since it's all, oh, anything can possibly happen, possible is possible, it's there. We start to create not extremists, but we start to create people who are basically delusional in a reality. I know I don't have wings. I know I don't have the ability to fly. That doesn't mean that, oh, I'm not limited. It's just I have to switch my perspective of how I want to talk about flying. So you don't necessarily have to always push a goalpost on something. There's always a way to rephrase, maneuver, and to look at an issue and see the evidence. And it's not also to try to, again, always push a point. But that's why I'll even say this. That's why in art, it's very difficult for people because it's very subjective when it comes to viewing art. Some people, it can be just all bunch of scribbles and lines. For others, it can beautifully state and show a concept. That's why they say the picture's worth 1,000 words, is because of the fact that it's still all up for your own interpretation. Shouts out to Two in the Temple. It's up for your interpretation. But when you start to bring up, it's up for your interpretation to a point where it's not conducive to helping us understand what's going on. That's where everything gets skewed and it gets just thrown out. And then now this evidence in the court doesn't make sense to use because, oh, it was an old technique from, years ago, which some of it could still be used and be valid for today. But it's just, we're just going to throw it out completely. There's no need to have it. Why? Yeah. Too many false influences out there. Yes. We talked about it last stream. And I'm still saying it again this stream. For folks who do go by the Bible, the whole idea of false prophets, fake news I know fake news has been a thing for a long time. They call it propaganda. And there's a reason why it's called propaganda. It is to prop up someone's thoughts and their perspectives and run it. Because that's not in everybody's identity. Propaganda is not something that is undeniable. You can literally poke in the holes when it comes to propaganda, because the same thing, propaganda, another name for it is an agenda. People's intentions behind stuff then becomes undeniable because of the fact that now they're trying to push a narrative. And shouts out to Robles the one, because he's the one on the mic or wherever he goes, undeniably a dope MC, undeniably. You start to see all of the inconsistencies. So when you see that the news is only showing all the negative, you understand that they're trying to elicit or pull out of you a feeling, and a specific feeling, fear mongering. You don't get to see the pleasant things that happens is because they are trying to get, again, an emotional response. When you get somebody in their feels, in their emotions, the rational thoughts in their brain, the left side of the brain starts to go to the right side of the brain and starts to create all these other possibilities as well as scenarios to a point where you lose out on, okay, what was the point in the first place? And again, confusion is another tactic that is used. You can confuse the masses. They will not organize together on a point. They will not move forward for anything. It says, and yes, it says, yes, that's when it gets to, when we get into more relativism I talked about last week. Yes. And yes, fake news about to get worse because of such as deep fakes and voice cloning. Yes. AI. Again, artificial. I talked about the natural. Nature always wins at the end of the day. But yes, that's where, again, this information age and the technological age is a double-edged sword. There's a lot of things that is very beneficial for, but there's a lot of things that is also doing harm and doing damage. But it's based off of how it's intentionally being used. Is it being used for evidence to make things clear? Or is it being used to create more division and more confusion? Is it helping to make our lives a lot easier and a lot more efficient? Or is it being used to make things more difficult and more hazardous? These are all questions that you need to end up asking yourself when thinking this stuff. He's like, I even saw an entire YouTube channel with the voice of Morgan Freeman. I don't think he's even getting paid. I think we spoke about this before. There's some where there's actually, I spoke about it too, and I'm bringing it back up. There's YouTube videos of former presidents playing different video games, and they're using a lot of their same mannerisms as well as the voices is, some of them you can tell is definitely not fully on point, but still that whole aspect of now, it starts to mess with the frame of reality of, yo, I didn't even say what you just said, but because you can put an AI voice, get somebody's pairing of, syllables of how they said, the number of words, or get a whole list of all the different combinations of words that they've said throughout their life, upload it, run it through a whole script, play around and maneuver it. You can get to a point of literally having anybody say anything at any point in time, and they can use that as evidence. Why do you think also some evidence, especially video evidence, is thrown out? Because of the fact that folks don't give you the full, raw, unedited. They'll send edited stuff in there, again, to give the perception of the point that they're trying to get across. Not the necessary clear evidence or the truth, but their side of the truth. And that's what happens. It becomes subjective versus objective. It says there was even a video of Ukraine President Zelensky. I can't even right now, but telling his troops to go home. It turned out to be fake. Yes. So I am concerned it could even start a nuclear, you know what? Yes. But that's where, again, now of trying to figure out how do we define? How would we define what clear evidence is now? Because clearly at this point, a lot of stuff that is technological still has these rooms for error. So now how can we tell when something is 100% foolproof? It's almost to a point where there's a lot of stuff that's starting to not be undeniable anymore. And what I mean by not undeniable, that means that you can have something proven against it. So where do we draw the line? Where do we tell ourselves, okay, we can argue this point up until this information is here? And there's a limit. And not a limit in a sense of like a mental limit, like you can never get beyond or past that. There's stuff that you're always going to be able to improve on and get better at. But when it comes to making decisions, wow, me and these, I swear, every time with the songs, it has a word and I just use it right when it comes up. I'm not even really listening to it. The power of the unconscious mind, y'all. Unconscious mind. But it gets to a point where, okay, where are we stopping this line for, okay, once it gets to this type of decision, that's it. It's the same thing with when how a bill is passed or any type of law is passed. It has to go through, then it has the Senate, the House. Then again, I don't know all the full levels as well, especially in your city. You need to know who it goes through. If we didn't even have that process, then what could we end up saying really can go into law? What could even actually be the truth? When do you know when it's time to stop? Your body tells you, okay, I've had enough food. Let's stop eating. Because then if you decide to keep eating after you know that you're full, now you're overeating. Same thing. If you know you've already had enough water or you've had enough something to drink, your body's going to let you know, okay, that's enough. We don't need no more. We're satisfied. Now, where is that point for everything else? How do we know when we've had enough of, again, paying taxes? How do we know that we've had enough of being able to support somebody? How do we know that we've had enough of, okay, these court cases keep coming back extremely negative? What are we missing? So where is our anchor? Where's our center? Where's our, our balance? Supposedly, again, between the judicial, the legislative, and the executive, they're all supposed to be quote unquote checks and balances. They're supposed to be checking and balancing each other. So if that's going on, then where's that in everyday discourse? Where's our checks and balances and stuff like that? And that's where the rules, regulations, and things, come into place. But if we decide we're not going to follow that stuff, or that it doesn't apply to me, so because it doesn't apply to me, we're not going to let it apply to everybody else, then how we are going to go about constructively keeping things going? It's not going to run after a while. If I think a gear is only meant to just stay in one spot and it doesn't turn at all, eventually, because that gear is not moving, the other gears are moving, it's going to cause the machine to not work as effectively as it does. Or it might end up having an influence on other parts because of the fact that this one's not moving. So it gets the other clog stuck, or the other machine stuck. Then it gets the other one stuck. It gets the other one stuck to a point, then the whole thing breaks down. So ultimately, where do we draw the line when we see that evidence being clear? So can you argue points when the evidence is clear? Yes, you can. If you want to decide to be in agreement to the point to build a structure, or you can argue it if you're trying to still go against it, even though it is evident. While at the same time, no, you can't argue a point, because when you decide to argue something that is there, that is clear, that is undeniable, you open the door for multiple possibilities to happen. And then that creates more chaos, more confusion, more disillusion against, okay, where are we going with this stuff? We're just living to live now. There's no point. The point is just to have multiple points, just to say you have multiple points. Like, let's get this together. Seriously. But yeah, let's see. It says, yeah, it's getting harder to even define clear evidence. Yes, because we're truly living in a post-truth world. Anything at this point could be the truth. And it's because of the part of, you can lie about any type of truth. And if you get a number of people to believe in that truth, it becomes a reality. Yeah, life is a waste of time. Honestly, life is a beautiful thing. The thing that's a waste of time is the way that we confuse each other. Just because as humans, we're trying to literally define and figure every single thing out. But because we try to complicate things that is not necessarily needed to be complicated, that's where everything starts to become, oh, anything can happen. Because we can make this life as beautiful as we want to make it. But we can also make this life as ugly as we want to make it. Because ultimately, it's up to you. Again, you can react to somebody hitting you by automatically just smacking them right back. Or you can respond to come up with what's going on. And then make the decision whether if you're going to act on it or not. And that's what's happening nowadays. We are very reactionary. We talked about this last stream. Very reactionary with stuff versus taking time to sit down and actually come up with a plan. People talk about wanting solutions, but when they're in the midst of something, they don't have a solution because they're literally just wanting to keep pushing the goalposts. So when you don't have nothing, you can't stand on nothing. Guess what? You fall for everything. And that's what's happening. We're creating a whole structure where now there's so many missing pieces that eventually everything is going to start coming to fall down. They're saying this, what? Babylon is going to fall. What? Zion is falling. Great Rome has, is falling. All of this stuff. And it's because of small things like this that we're not checking. When you don't go back and double check, autocorrect, do all this other stuff, there's always going to be missing pieces to a point after that. Something's going to fall out of place after years and years of no maintenance and just continuing to build stuff and not actually plan it all the way out. This is what happens. 1000%. Yeah, it's like getting mad at a tire shop because they can't fix your engine. Exactly. I cannot get mad that I went to an orange salesman wanting bananas. And shouts out to the principal that I work for at the school too. He used the analogy of how the school is saying that, okay, even though I don't rock with it, of course, me and McDonald's, I'm nowhere. Me and McDonald's, we're enemies. But he used the analogy of the school being that we're McDonald's. And now you're trying to come to McDonald's ordering tacos and pizza. We just told you, we're McDonald's. We don't do tacos and pizza. If you want tacos and pizza, guess what? You go to Pizza Hut, you go to Taco Bell, you go to Del Taco, you go to all of your nearest food spots that actually have those things. You don't come to McDonald's thinking you're going to order this particular food. So the same thing with a lot of this stuff. You do not come. Yeah, you don't even go to the DMV to go order a cake. You literally do not go to the post office to buy a mattress. That's not how it's set up. But because, oh, there's a possibility anything can happen, yo, if they say this can happen, this is a possibility that can happen. Oh, if we say 2 times 2 can also equal 6, if we give a reason into why it could equal 6, and we still give you half credit, again, it opens up for, okay, they said I can do it like that, then that means I can do anything like that. So, I appreciate y'all. If y'all have any last thoughts, please put them down in the comments, because I'm getting ready to go ahead and wrap up. But I do appreciate this convo for today, and it's been undeniably a much needed convo, to be truthful. Shouts out to Gills. Peace and love, brother. How you doing, man? What's the word? We're actually wrapping down for tonight, but if anybody else, again, has any last comments, any last thoughts or wrap-ups that they want to share in the comments, please put it down before I make my final wrap-ups and final thoughts. And get ready for tomorrow. Not only school, but also we're going to have a more interview with a brother that I went to school with back in elementary, and talking about his business and branding and stuff tomorrow at 6 p.m. So I got to go get all this other stuff done before I knock out and go to sleep. But if you guys have anything else, please put it down in the comments while I'm setting all this other stuff up. And then my brother pops up in here too. What's going on? What's good, John? Peace and love, my man. What you doing, man? But right. As we adding it in, we late, yeah, for sure, we late, because we about to wrap up, but still here. I appreciate it nonetheless. Anybody popping in, come to check it out. I appreciate y'all, man. It's what's the word, but now we about to get into the final word and the final, again, wrap up for tonight. So, from me, when it comes to tonight's show, especially starting off with current events, you have to take time and take effort into reading news reports and actually being aware of what's happening in your surroundings. Because as I always usually say, and it's not my saying, but proper preparation prevents poor performance. If you do not properly prepare yourself and at least have the knowledge and some information of what's going on, you will not be able to prepare for the worst, prepare for the best, whatever that is in that situation. So when being up to date with current events, please make sure to just read so you can help not only yourself, but your loved ones and everyone around you. It's about awareness, spatial awareness in this particular case. Shouts out to spatial awareness. Shouts out to Sabu, my brother. What's good? The booth is in the building and it's on fire. But when it comes to that current events, please, awareness is key. Second, when it comes to undeniable, again, it's difficult or impossible to deny. It's irrefutable. It is evidence. It is things that are unquestionably or obviously true. You cannot say that it's not. And it's hard to resist it or to deny it. So when you know that you are sweating, you can't say that you're not hot, because your body is already physically showing you that you are hot. You're sweating. You're getting rid of what this is going on. Or sick in any other way, shape, or form. You are undeniably not feeling well. So it's hard to go against. And lastly, can you argue points when evidence is clear? On both sides, yes you can, and no you cannot. Yes, you can argue the points, especially if you are in agreement with the evidence. But at the same time, you can also argue against the points. But what that does is it creates a loop of insanity, as well as it opens the world for more possibilities, Pandora's box, for it to be confusing, many delusions, as well as you become unsure. Anything can happen. Everything is possible. As well as no, because once things are made clear, it's made clear. That's it. You've gotten the instructions. You see that it's there. You see that it works. You see that time and time is consistent and it's always present. It is a natural occurrence in a law that cannot be changed. It's undeniable. So you cannot argue against it. But other than that, y'all, I've been your brother A.D.V.I.S. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming through. This has been another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. Again, if you want to go check this out, this will be up on Instagram later and on YouTube. Subscribe to your boy at A.D.V.I.S Speaks. We're going to have more of this, but I will catch y'all not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday for the next episode. So much love. Thank y'all for coming through. Much support. I'll see y'all next time. Peace and one love. I'm out.